Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome back to the session. Wish you all a very happy Ugadi, a very happy New Year as well. So hope this year will be a great year for you all. Hope you're all able to hear me, team. Just give me a quick information so we can start with the session. Yes, everybody. Am I audible? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, please, team. Is my voice clear to everybody, or is it not clear? It's clear. So Ashwin, please do check from your side if there is any disturbances on your mic. Okay, great. Thank you, team. Thank you all for the quick confirmation. I wish one more time again a very happy New Year and the happy Ugadi. So let's start with the session, team. Just for a quick recap again. So Sweta, we need to check if you're putting in your local, right? What all the things you are doing it. We need to understand them. Maybe I'll try to help you at the end. Okay, so we will try to look into it. Otherwise, you may follow the things which we've done on the EC2 for now. Okay, whatever you're doing in your local, we need to check. I'll try to help you at the end if you can share your screen, maybe. That's all we can do. Okay. Right, so let's start with the session just for a quick recap again. Right, just yesterday, team, we were initially understanding about one Git topic, which was the Git workflows, what they are and how do we adopt a branching strategy for your project, right? Depends on your project team, depends on your organization. As I said, they may adopt anything, but mostly the feature workflow is what we do it n number of times. That will be sufficient for many of the projects that are being used by many organizations. Now, that's the initial topic team we understood, and later we also started understanding about the introduction to the maven and introduction to the Jenkins. Now, what is Jenkins? What is maven? Why do we need them actually? So once the source code is ready, team, we said we need to build the code. So in order to build the code or convert the code into a deployable format, we might want certain tool that helps us. Again, that is where we said some build tools like maven, we will use it. And also this build code process, team, is not straightforward, like we convert source code into deployable, but there is also certain steps involved to ensure the quality of the software. That's where we understood about the compilation, code review, unit testing, which is usually done mostly by the developers, or some things we may do it accordingly instructed by the developers. So again, team, this build code process is some process that helps, that may be done n number of times in a day. Since it is going to be a repetitive task, we must automate the work. That is where we introduced one another tool called as the Jenkins. Now, Jenkins is just a tool, team, that helps to automate the build code process. It is designed, it is developed, keeping the intention of automating the build code process itself. So Jenkins has a build automation server. It will help us integrating various tools, integrating the code from different developers into one thing, and then finally build the code as a whole. That is what we said. And then this process is also called as the continuous integration process. Now, this entire steps that we involve in this particular build code process are executed in a sequential, then it becomes the CI pipeline. A pipeline as such, we have one start point and there is a endpoint where what will be the outcome we are expecting. So that's what we set here as a pipeline introduction, and the Jenkins introduction, and also the maven introduction. Now we have many tools like Jenkins as well, like CI Circle, TeamCity, Bamboo, right? There are many tools in the market, but Jenkins is widely used. Majority of the organizations use the Jenkins. So we are trying to understand Jenkins as an open source, how it helps your project to, to implement a build code process and everything. So this is what we were discussing, team, initially, the introduction in detail for some time. And then later we also understood how do we set up the Jenkins. So we took the same EC2 instance that we created on the day 2, right? On that, we were working on the Git privately for the last week. And then on the same machine team, on the same instance, we tried installing the, various tools like Java. We installed Java for executing the Java project, for example. And then we also installed Maven as a build tool, how it helps to build the Java-based code. Now, initially we installed team, and then we were able to build the code without, without actually, just give me a second, team. I'm just logging into that VM team, which we did yesterday. So what we understood yesterday is that without the help of the Jenkins, we were able to build the code by just installing the Maven, by installing the Java, right? We were able to clone the repository manually, and we were able to get into the project folder and then run the Maven commands to, compile, package, whatever you want to do, you do it manually. Means every time you execute this command manually to perform things. But otherwise, team, instead of this is going to be a repetitive task, we may perform n number of times in a day. To automate the things, we said we will take the help of the Jenkins. So we installed Jenkins yesterday, and then we tried checking the Jenkins as a web application process running on your system itself. By default, the web application processes runs on a specific port number, which is allocated as an address to them. Now, that is the reason we said we go to the browser and then we access the Jenkins using the EC2 instance public IP and the port number that is allocated for your process on the server, which is 8080. We hit the combination of IP:port number, then your Jenkins will launch. Now, we followed a few steps to configure the Jenkins team, like install suggested plugins, configure a default admin user, configuring the Jenkins URL with your private IP. Then finally, the Jenkins setup is finished. Now, once you finish your setup team, this is where we stopped yesterday, right? We didn't proceed configuring anything. We didn't do anything yesterday, but we just stopped where we were able to install and do the things. Okay. Not sure if somebody logged in and did this one. Who did this? I didn't do this one, but somebody. Okay, for whatever it is, team, this is the idea. Ganesh, you have taken my IP and you did. Okay, great. So thank you for executing it, but let's say that we'll start from the scratch again. Thank you. I don't know what you have done, but great. Right, so let's say that this is a fresh Jenkins. I'm deleting your things just once you don't mind. So here it is, team. This is a fresh Jenkins page where we were seeing this, right? So we will be starting today, team, to understand about how do we integrate, how do we integrate the various tools into the Jenkins, configuring Jenkins with various tools. And then we also going to build or execute the build code process steps using the Jenkins. And then finally, we construct, it will become a pipeline. And then we will see the next results, what we need to do. Okay. So this will be the agenda for this to complete the CI pipeline on the Jenkins, executing, integrating various things. And I believe that everybody is clear until this point. And I hope that everybody was able to set up the things as we discussed on your EC2 instances. So any questions before we get started with the session, team? Anybody? Okay, so I believe no questions. Do not raise your hands, team. Do not raise your hands. Try to use the chat window to answer anything or to question anything. Sorry, please. Yeah. Right, so let's start understanding team. Now, once you see the Jenkins setup, this is a fresh Jenkins which do not have anything. The first thing to understand, team, to configure Jenkins with various tools. Remember, team, we have installed the Maven, Java, Git on this machine. Now, whenever you install a software, team, on any server, like in your Windows machine or a Mac machine, team, for example, Windows, any software you install, it always goes and sits in a specific path under your C drive, like C program files, application folder, something. Now that's called the installation path team. And we also need to tell the Jenkins now about the installation path of your Java, Maven, everything, because Jenkins cannot detect that by default. You might want to tell them probably. So to understand team, the default installation path that we did yesterday, or as per the instruction, if you follow me, right, then the default installation path for your Java will be like this. Right, user lib jvm. This is the Java 1.11 something. Now this is the installation path team where the Java binary gets installed, a Java program gets installed on your system. This is the first path to know. Now along with this team, we also need to understand where the Maven is installed. And if you followed my instructions again, the path for the Maven installation will be the opt maven. This is the two installation paths, we know it. Along with team, if you want to know the where Git is installed, so we can also run a command something like default is this one team, all right? It will be like user bin git, I believe. This is the one. So these are the these are the things team that we have on the default installation paths. This is what we do it. I have a maximum font increased. I'm not sure if it is a problem for everybody, but if I increase further, it will be trouble. I'm trying to increase a little bit for you, but not more than that. Okay. So this is the font I can do maximum. And if I do further, then it will be going much this one. So this is the idea team that three different paths. One is the Jenkins Java installation path. One is the Maven installation path. And one is the Git installation path. Now, why I'm showing you these things is that team, you must tell these tools information to the Jenkins where they installed. Now, all those configuration will be doing from the UI. So given that here team, we are going to configure Jenkins. On the left side, you see the option like manage Jenkins. Now, manage Jenkins team is like your settings button on your phone. Remember that it's a simple settings that every configuration, every customization that you want to do to the Jenkins, we always go to an option called manage Jenkins. Now, if you click on the manage Jenkins team, it will go to the next page where you see the system configuration, security, status, and so on. So various information. Now, we're talking about the system configuration a little bit here. Integrating the various tools. So if you go to the system configuration team, under that you find something called as the global tool configuration. Now, why this is team? Because the tools, remember team, Java is a tool, Maven is a tool, Git is a tool, which should be used by the Jenkins. That's why they are called as the tool configuration. Like any external software that the Jenkins wants to use, mostly they becomes the tools which Jenkins will use it. The installations technically. So if I want to configure those things team, if I click on the global tool configuration now, you will see the various installation or the tools by default appear here. The JDK installation, which I'm showing you right now, the list of JDK installations on this system. If I go on add JDK, it will give you two options, right? JDK, the name. Now you can enter any name here, that's your choice. Like I'm doing the Java 1.11 as I installed it, and it asks you something called Java home. Now Java home is nothing but the path on your system where the Java is installed. Now this is the path user lib jvm something something. Now this is the default path that is installed yesterday. So copy this path and then configure here. Now this is very much important that you always configure this. The first about the Java installation path configuration. The second, it shows that the Git installations, again, the Git to be used by the Jenkins. It has some default value, but if you want to change the default value to the specific value you have it, the Git, which is the user bin Git, you may change that. So this is the one I'm configuring under the path to the Git executable, which is this one in my case. Or you may leave the default as well. There will be no harm. The Git will be detected. Now, these are the two things. And the third thing is about the build tool like Maven or Ant or Gradle. The default Jenkins shows you these options. So technically, we are using the Maven at the last. So we are going to add Maven. So click on add Maven theme here, and then it is giving you some option of install automatically. So avoid that because we already installed it. So untick these check marks, right? Why it is having two. Okay. So this is the one team, as you can see that team. If anybody is logged into my system team, please do not do anything. Okay. Do not log into my Jenkins and do not do anything along with me. Just let me see this one. So here it is the Maven installations. Under that, again, you may mention any Maven that you wanted. The name can be anything as you wish. And the Maven home that you installed, it is on your server, which is the OPT Maven that we installed yesterday. So copy this path and then you give here simple. Now, this is how team you just can install or configure the various tools to the Jenkins. So Jenkins can understand where they installed and Jenkins will start utilizing them wherever necessary during the build code process going forward. Okay. Now, once you do this team, click on the save button. So it will save the configuration in the Jenkins. So Jenkins remembers those things from now. Now it is one-time activity team that we can be using a number of times later. So this is the first setting team that you need to do. Remember, this is the first setting that you need to do once after you install Jenkins. Tell the Jenkins what all the tools that you would like to integrate with Jenkins. So once you're done with that, you may come back to the dashboard, the default page here. So I hope that team, I'm clear on this particular part about configuring the tools to the Jenkins. Any questions on this one? Or we can continue now to start executing various things. Any questions on the global tool configurations here so far? Okay, great. Thank you, team. Thank you for the confirmation. So let's move on, team. No, we are not done yet, Raju. We are starting now. We haven't even started the CI. Okay, we're just starting. So we just integrated a few tools and we will be using those tools to build the CI now. Now, the thing is that team, we need to instruct the Jenkins what it has to do. That is like you are writing an automation using Jenkins, right? Now we need to tell the Jenkins, right? Remember team, you need to tell the Jenkins about like you cloned it. Remember yesterday we did something manually. Like we said, we want to clone the repository and we went into the repository. Then we ran this one. So instead of you running these instructions now, let Jenkins run them. But if Jenkins has to run them, you need to tell at least once, hey, keep this configuration with you and then run it whenever I want it. So in order to instruct Jenkins what it has to do, team, we say that we create a project. Say start building your software project. Now it says create a job. Now you may do from here, team, but this is not the right thing. On the left side, you see something called as a new item. Now you always have to click on the new item whenever you want to start a new automation with Jenkins, new execution, new script, you may call it something. This also can be called as a project. This also can be called as a job, something, the various terms, but everything is same. Now you enter something, what you're trying to ask Jenkins to do. Say, I want Jenkins to do compilation, the first stage in our build code process, as we discussed yesterday. Now you give the name of the job to identify what is this job. And then you choose something for now as a beginner. Remember team, if you are a beginner, you always use the freestyle. That will help you configure various things easily in the Jenkins. So you select the freestyle and then click OK at the bottom. That will open up a configuration page, right? Where you just configure various things. Now in this section, you see the various options again. The first thing is about the general description about the project. If you want to write a brief description of this, why this is and what this is, you may write it. Otherwise, it is not necessary for now. Keep it aside. Our main intention is to use the source code repository, or we tell the Jenkins to use a source code repository URL, right? Under the source code management section, you see a none, or we choose the get, as our source code is available on the GitHub like repository, right? So you take this URL, the URL of the software project given by the developer, and you just configure the URL here. That is what all you got to do, right? Now, in case this repository is private team, you may use the credentials, right? But since our repository is public, right now, we don't need any credentials. Leave them as it is, right? Now, along with that, you also choose the branch that you would like to clone or build. Now, the default is the master here. Now, ensure that team what branch you have it here. In our case, it is the master here. If this is a main, or if you want to build a feature XY or a default branches for testing purpose something, you may choose or change the branch accordingly. But right now, we stick only to the default branch called as the master. Okay. Now, this is the master branch that I'm giving it. Nothing else to be there. That's all. Now, along with this team, the next option it shows is the build trigger. Now, we'll come back to this and understand later, but right now, keep it aside. Now, along with that, a build environment is also the various options that you will come across later point. But right now, our intention is to clone the Git repository. So which means if you give this URL, Jenkins will clone it internally automatically for you. The second step, once we cloned a Git repository, once we clone the repository, we want to run command like maven compile. That's all we want to do, right? So technically, team, in order to do that, under the build step, under the build steps, drop down, and then you say that execute shell. Because team, this is like executing a shell command. Whatever you are running here, just you can copy paste in that section like this. Or if you want to be more sure with the maven installation, everything, say that opt maven, right? Bin means that's an absolute path. That's a short path. You may use anything as you wish. Simple mvn compile, or with a full installation path with maven executable, then give the code. Right? Where is maven? This is where the maven is technically, right? So we can just give this one. So the Jenkins will start executing on the server. That is the idea. So this is the semantic, the execute shell, like whatever you did on the command line, we just giving that instruction to the Jenkins. Once you're done, there is some other thing called a post-build action. We will come across in the next steps. Let's wait for it. In this scenario, team, I'm just showing the two configurations. One is the source code management, like where you give the source code repository URL, which Jenkins will clone for you or pull the code changes from it. And then it will start executing whatever you say under the build steps. Whatever you want to run, again, as the project, you always mention under this particular build step. Okay. So you can save this configuration, team, to the Jenkins. Remember, this kind of a setup is one-time job, right? Now, if you would like to modify later, then only you go and reconfigure the job. Let's say that, go to the dashboard. You see the job that you saved in the Jenkins. You may reopen the job whenever you want. And then you can reconfigure. Means if you would like to change some instructions in this job, you may change it later point. But there is one thing about reconfiguring the job. You may delete this if you do not need it. You may rename it if you want something. But along with this team, there is one thing. Now, once we have prepared a script, once we have built an automation, we need to execute it. Remember, Jenkins won't run this as of now automatically. You need to tell the Jenkins now to execute all the instructions placed under this particular job. To do that, you may see a play button at the last on the same dashboard page, or you may go to this specific job, click on it. On the left menu, there is again a play button with an option called build now. Now, until unless you won't click on the build now, team, Jenkins won't run those instructions. Remember that. So if I click on build now, what does Jenkins do? It will execute the git clone on behalf of you and the maven compile on behalf of you, one after the other. Now, if you want to see the output that you saw yesterday on my terminal or the screen, under the build history, you see it is running the build number one. Now it is also being successful. To see the output, to see the everything generated at this stage, just click on this build number one. It will take you to the next page again. On the left side, you see the various options where you see the console output. Now, if you click on the console output here, you see that whatever it has done on the terminal yesterday, right? Now you see that it is using the same, started by the user admin, like whoever logged in. Now it says building in the workspace. I'll tell you what is this. But if you see this one team, it says cloning the remote Git repository. That's what we did, right, manually. But instead of you doing it, now Jenkins does it. Now, apart from that, once it clones it, whatever the repository, then you also see that it is running the maven compile. Now, when it runs the maven compile, whatever the output generated, it recorded on the Jenkins UI itself simply. Now, everything team, now it will be easy for me. I don't need to read this code even, or if there is any error in this particular output, I'll just share this URL to the developer, right? The developer will go through all the lines, find out the errors, and then resolve them as necessary. Because if the compilation is failed, it is the developer who need to fix the code, right? It's not as a DevOps engineer. If you do not have a knowledge of coding, you don't need to worry because you don't need to fix this. Your responsibility is to set up the Jenkins, set up the job, execute it. Whenever there is a failure, send back to the developer. That's it. So you see this team, it's very clear. Now it is easy for us to track the number of times we are running the job. Every time you run the job, if there are any errors in that, it will record within the Jenkins UI itself, like it will store the data somewhere in the backend. But we can go back in the history as well and check it, how many times the job failed, how many times the compilation failed, everything. So this is the first understanding team about, about the compilation done by the Jenkins. But along with that, you just need to understand one important thing here is that where did it clone this repository? Where did it generate the results of the compilation output, right? We are running compilation, some binary code might be generated as well. So this is where team, remember, every time Jenkins executes anything, means it sees that you're seeing executing something from the Jenkins UI, it generates, it clones the Git repository under something called as the workspace. Now, workspace is a simple directory, simple folder on your Jenkins machine where you installed the Jenkins, right? You see this, it is called var lib Jenkins workspace and the compile something. Now, this path key is also known as the Jenkins installation directory. Remember here, right? Now on the server, we install Jenkins. So by default, Jenkins installs under the var lib Jenkins. Now under the var lib Jenkins, you see a lot of Jenkins related data, Jenkins software related data, its configurations, its jobs we configured, the default installation configuration, everything will be here. Now within this installation directory, whenever you execute a job from the Jenkins UI, it generates all those results under the specific folder called as the workspace. This workspace will be created by the Jenkins automatically on the backend. You execute in the UI, it generates all the results on the backend disk of the machine. So if you go to the workspace folder, it creates a folder with a job name you created. Remember, whatever the job name we kept here, which is the compile, the same name will be created a folder with. Now, once it creates that folder, within this folder is where it clones all the repository source code. Remember, this is the code till the src directory is cloned from the GitHub repository. You can see here, everything will be here, deploy, Jenkins, src, and a few other files are there, except the target folder here. Remember, you see everything because this is the repository we are cloning it. So technically, you see everything here, src, deploy, Jenkins, and few other files. And whenever the maven is being executed, it generates the results into a folder called target. The target is the folder, if you go, where you find all the binary code. Remember, the compilation purpose is to convert the normal code into a byte code. So all the byte code is present under this particular folders if you go and check it. Right? So they are being converted as the class files. Class is the binary code. Actually, you may not be able to read properly, but machine can understand them. Like you see that it just does in this one, right? So this is the understanding team. Remember that you need to keep, whenever you're executing anything on the Jenkins console, it generates all the results into the backend server where you see under the Jenkins home, a workspace folder, right? This is the idea about it. Okay. I believe, team, you all got some understanding, right? Now, what do you want? Nitish, here it is. Anything you wanted. So file, property. This compiled Java class data. That's what it is. Okay. So this is the understanding, team, everybody. I hope that I'm clear on how do we build a job and how do we create a job, or how do we execute something from the Jenkins UI, and how do we look at the results in the backend. Now, as the DevOps engineer team, remember that how it is performing on the backend, where the results are getting generated, knowing that information is very much important, team. So be sure that what you're trying to do, be sure what is happening in the backend, and that's your responsibility. If there are certain problems, you must fix them by yourself, or to help the developers to fix them issues accordingly. Okay. So am I clear here, team, everybody? Now, we haven't packaged the code, Raju. We just compiled it, right? If you package, remember that as per the steps, the compilation will not do the package of the code. It just compiles the code only. Now, if you do the package as a maven goal, maven lifecycle, that is a step where the source code converts into an installable format like var. So compilation does not produce the var, whereas the package is the only stage where we get the var in this situation. Okay. Packaging doesn't make any sense before you validate some things. That is the reason we're just doing the validations for now. If we are satisfied with the validations, then we produce the final package. I hope that makes sense for everybody as well, team. So any questions on anything that we discussed so far in our thing or this today? So can we use maven in EC2 as well? Now that's what we did, right, Abhijit? We did install the maven on the EC2 yesterday, and that's what we executed yesterday. This is only the first step. That's right. Isn't what we did yesterday, right? We installed maven, we executed maven, everything yesterday here. Here it is, maven compile. This is all my EC2 instance only, Abhijit. EC2 server, a virtual machine. Within that only we are trying to do. Right. So any other questions, team, before we move? We can customize the workspace path if you want it. That you just need to customize the Jenkins configurations to do that. That's right. What is the use of .exe file, Anmol? You have a vlc.exe. What is the purpose of it? You install it on a server to utilize the application, isn't it? Same thing with a var file is like a website. Okay. So if you take about the facebook.com, right? A facebook.com was installed on a server. They use install using a var file, maybe thing. That is the situation. Okay. Right. So now let's proceed, team. The second step in the build code process that we want to do is the code review. Now, how do we perform the code review with maven, everything? Now, for that team, again, let's say that we're going to build a new job because that's altogether a different step, different execution. We want to do that. So the second step team, I will give it as the, say that the code review. You may give any name, team, doesn't matter. For your understanding, I'm giving actually the code review. But based on your project, you may put your project names, everything, and steps according to the requirement. So again, select the freestyle, say okay to it. And then you start doing the same steps over again. Means you just need to give the source code again on which you want to perform the code review, right? So I select the git again, give the URL, and then go switch or use the branch accordingly. The same thing again, a build step I'm going directly with. Now under the build step, I'll go here and I execute shell and I use the same thing again. So opt maven bin mvn. Now for the mvn team or the maven, we're going to ask now to execute something like the goal will be like this team. We call it metrics a pmd colon pmd. Now, what is this goal? It starts with the capital P metrics PMD colon PMD team. Now, this PMD, remember that it is called program mistake detector. Or in a way, this PMD is the predefined rule set. As I told the team yesterday, the code review is performed against the standards, against some predefined rules, standards we're going to perform. So assume that in this case, we are asking the maven to find the metrics against the PMD, which is a predefined. The maven gets, go to the internet in this case, actually downloads the necessary rule set first of all, then compare your code with the rule set, and then finally produce some results for us, and we can check where the mistakes are, what mistakes are accordingly. So this is the goal. We are telling the maven to use the PMD as the predefined stance. What is this PMD? What is that? PMD for, you can use various things. I'm telling it, a PMD is not only the one. We have check style, we have find bugs, we have sonar cube. So there are many tools. No, there are many things it would work, but I'm just using one out of it. Check marks, app scan. So there are many things. That's what I'm saying it. There are many things, team, depends on your project type. Your organization may use one of them, or your organization may build their own rule set as well if they want it. So the understanding is that we will be using some rule set. That's it. The standards against the code will be validated and then give us some results. Okay. Now, thank you, Ganesh, for all that list. Absolutely. All those things are works. So the idea here is that once we configured it, now once I set to use the PMD as a rule set to validate the code, it will generate some result. Now go back to the build step, look at the console output to understand the results, right? If you go to the bottom team, the only thing you will see here is that it is a build success, which means it performed the validations and it says that mostly, which is good. So the idea is that team, where are the results? And then how do I look at those results is the question. Now, in order to look at the results team, remember again, we always have to go to the backend, which is the var lib workspace and code review, right? Now you may see, or you may go to this path always, the workspace, which is given by the Jenkins to see the results, right? Now you see the target folder here. Again, under the target folder, like we had the bytecode previous scenario. Now in this case, you have some results that are used. It says something called unused code, some Java import, some pmd.xml. Now this output team is in the form of XML. Means the results are in the form of XML here, which can be seen from the Jenkins UI as well team. Means the same workspace here can also be seen from the Jenkins UI if you want. You don't need to go to the backend every time. If you go to the job, you see there is a workspace as well on the left. Means whatever is on the workspace directory, Jenkins even populates them on the Jenkins UI if you want it. Right? You see everything here. Means you can use the workspace here, or you may go to the workspace on the back end. Anything is your comfortable, you do it. Okay. So second thing, if I go to the workspace here, now you see the target as well. The same results, what I've shown you on the command line backend, the same thing has been put on the UI as well for you. Now, the same thing, if I open up anything like pmd.xml, now this is hard for us to read. Yes, team, do you all agree? Can you understand what all the problems in this one maybe? Anybody can read XML easily and tell me something from this one? I assume. How many of you comfortable with reading this one? No, right? Even I'm not comfortable, team. So don't worry. Nobody will ask you to read them. So technically, empty finally blocked says that unused private field priority 3, some kind of information we have in this particular file, right? Right. So technically it says that PMD source codes, net PMD rules, Java, empty, HTML, empty finally blocked. Means it is trying to validate something against some predefined rule set and says that avoid empty finally blocks. It's a suggestion. Now, this is not I want to show you, team. Remember that here. It is not easy for us to read this way, right? It is not easy for us to look at the data in this format. Rather, you may convert this data into a nice HTML format and then read the data in a graphical way. Can we say that, team? Isn't that going to be easy for us if something can be converted into a HTML form, like a more simple UI form for us? Can we do that? Yes, team, can we do that or we cannot? We should be able to, team. We should be able to. Now, that's where Jenkins is so powerful. Remember, team, why Jenkins is actually used widely in the market? Because Jenkins would help you with any that sort of solutions easily doable. Now, Jenkins is the reason. Now, how Jenkins can do this again, right? Now, this is where, team, we want to talk a concept called plugin. So who can explain me what is called a plugin? Anybody? In a simpler way. Now, in order to do Jenkins something, we talk about plugins. Now, what are plugins basically, and then how do I understand a plugin? Anybody? Applications? Okay. You can integrate another tool into Jenkins. Okay. By installing the plugin into Jenkins, add on a feature, external app to support a task, right? The simple comparison is that, team, means you all know that I think you all are using some smartphones nowadays, right? Now, whenever you purchase a smartphone, for example, like Apple or Android phones, now these smartphones, team, by default come with the default applications, right? Default applications you do it. But for example, if you want to connect your banking service, what do? You want to perform some banking transaction on your mobile, what exactly you would do? Yes, team, just think about the general idea I'm giving it. So for example, if you want to play a game like PUBG, how many of you play the PUBG here? Nobody? So what do you do, team, in order to extend or to additional things on your phone? Normally you go to a Play Store, right? You normally go to a Play Store or App Store, a specific repository from where you download the necessary applications, right? You may download any sort of a game. You may sort of any sort of the usual applications. You use it on your mobile, right? And then you start using them. So which means that, team, remember, the plugin is similar to that. You're extending the functionality of a phone. You're extending the functionality of a phone, a basic phone, to do many more things, right? Now, plugins, team, are the extensions, right? Are the extensions, we call it, to a default basic software, you may call it, right? That is a simple idea. So it's an extension always that you do, and then you start utilizing the software in a much, much better way. Like you use your phone in a much, much better way with all the additional applications that you install. Now, that is the same concept in the Jenkins also follows. Like you have a Play Store and App Store. Jenkins also has something called plugin store, right? We call it as a plugins dot jenkins.io, right? Let's Google it. Exact URL, Jenkins plugins, you may call it. Yeah, it's plugins.jenkins.io. Now, if you go to this plugins index team, or this is the online repository, we call it with Jenkins. Now, where you see that, discover the 1800 plus community contributed Jenkins plugins to support building, deploying, and automating any project. Now, the Jenkins is just became powerful team because of all these additional tools that we can actually integrate. You may integrate or you may build any sort of a project, doesn't matter, whether Python or the .NET or the Node or the PHP, doesn't matter team. Jenkins will support building of any type of a sort of projects. Default, it supports the Java, but anything additional you want to do, you have to install the necessary plugins, extensions accordingly, right? So if I go and search for the .NET, you will find a number of plugins related to the .NET, which supports the .NET builds, right? So you use based on your requirement. Remember, if I search the Node, you may get a number of Node related. You may search for the PHP, you get all the PHP related plugins, everything. So the understanding is that we must install these plugins into your server, into your Jenkins, which is a basic server right now. So you also need to understand, the reason I'm discussing all this is the scenario, right? We actually want to understand, or we actually want to convert these results. This is called a static code analysis, also the code review, right? We want to convert these results into a more meaningful data. Now, this is where Jenkins has a plugin called as the warnings next generation, right? You see here, it's already listed here, or you may say, this is the one you do it. Now, this is one of the plugin team I'm giving you. Likewise, you may have many plugins. Now, the purpose of this plugin, if you read it, Jenkins next generation warning plugin collects the compiler warnings or issues reported by the static analysis tools. Remember, code review is also a static analysis, like the PMD becomes a static analysis tool along with maven here. So, and then visualizes the results. Now, that's what we wanted. We want to visualize the static analysis results reported by those tools, right? So it is built-in support for hundreds of formats. It supports all kind of the projects here. You see that it doesn't matter for Java or the C# or whatever it is. You may use this plugin, right? So by saying this one team now, you understood what is called a plugin, first of all. So any questions on what is called a plugin in Jenkins? What are plugins that Jenkins uses technically? Now, in order to install additional plugins to the Jenkins, in order to extend the Jenkins capabilities with plugins, again, we need to configure Jenkins. Like you have to go to the manage Jenkins option on the left, again, from the dashboard page. Now, under this one, under the system configuration, where you see the manage plugins option that is given to you explicitly. It says add, remove, disable, enable plugins that you want to do. Can extend the functionality of the Jenkins. So click on manage plugins here. On the left side, you have an update. Means if you already have an installed application, you may get the latest update. The available plugins you have, available is something like it goes to this repository and search for that plugin. They are listed given here. Let's say we want to use the default one called as the warnings next generation. It's listed here. You select the plugin that you want, say install without restart. Now I will start installing necessarily whatever is required, right? So it will install, like you go to the App Store and just install theme. We just go here and install the plugin as we wanted, right? This is the idea. Now you have installed successfully. If you want to check it, you go to the installed plugins and then look for what is installed here, which is warnings next generation successfully installed. Now you may have n number of integrations team, like the tools like DevOps, like Ansible, right? If I search for Ansible, you will get it. Ansible related plugins. If you want to integrate Docker related plugins, you will get it. If you want to install, integrate Kubernetes related plugins, you get it. So Jenkins is powerful that you can integrate any sort of a technology to extend its functionalities. Remember, we will use the necessary plugins as and when required. For now, the code review warnings next generation plugin is required. So we installed that plugin. Now, before I move on to the next configuration step team, I hope that everybody is clear on what is called a plugin, and how do we understand the plugin. What is the confusion, Harsha, here? Won't you install an application from your App Store and use it accordingly? Haven't you installed an application from an App Store or a Play Store on your phone anytime? Maven, we are not using as a plugin, Vishal. We are using as an installation on your server. So you can use as a plugin as well, but it is preferable to use as a server application. You did right. Now, how it is different than installation of application from your App Store to this one here? What is the confusion here? Like you go to an App Store and then install an application, like I'm going to the manage plugins and installing whatever I wanted. How it is different when compared to your application installation from your App Store to the plugin installation here. Here you're using on a browser that you use on your mobile. It is same as that what you do from your App Store or a Play Store, that your phone functionalities are extended, correct? Once you install, then you start utilizing that application, isn't it? Am I clear now, Harsha? Are you still confused? Same thing I'm telling, right? It is a very same thing. You installed it. Now I would like to utilize that functionality application in the Jenkins. Now here, the purpose is look like this one. If I go to the code review, right, and I go to the configure, now we said a build step. Now, can I see that when I run this command here, it will generate the results, right? So can I say that if it will generate the results always here? Now, once the necessary results are generated, like pmd.xml, we need to perform action on top of the results, like a pmd.xml or some results are generated, take the result and convert it into a different form. That is what we do it. So this is where team, you use a post build action. Now, what is this post build action? It will help you build some action, do some action on top of the build results always, right? Whatever the results generated from the build step, using those results, it will perform some other action for you, right? If I go to this post build action, you see the various options now again here. Like you could send an email to the developer if you wanted, or you may use this one, right? A compiler warnings and static analysis results. Like we just did, team, we installed a plugin. So it is giving an option now here. Remember, team, if you do not install the plugin, you won't find this option here simple, right? The options are visible after you install the necessary plugins. So once I install that extension, now it is allowing me to use that functionality in my Jenkins as opposed to build action step. Now, under this one, it says that a static analysis tool results. There are n number of tools, as I said. So here, let's say that PMD, you use it. Wait for some time, Karthik. Now, under this one, I'm just giving the a file which we generated into the results, pmd.xml. Okay. So this is what the idea is. Now, once you apply it, save it. Now, once you save this configuration team, let's re-execute this one more time, right? Now, when I re-execute team, please do not run from my server. Whoever is logged in, whoever is trying to run from my server, please do not execute it. I see somebody is running here, team. I don't know who is it, but please do not use the server which I'm using, please. So here, now team, when I open up the second build, or when I ran for the second time on the console, you see something called PMD warnings. Now, if you open this PMD warnings on your Jenkins console, you will see that technically the details about what are the issues in this one. You go to the issues tab here, means if there are any issues found in the code given by the developer. Now here it will clearly tell you that some issues, a type of an issue like empty catch block, unused private field. You don't need to understand them, team, but it is not a good thing to have these issues. Like if I go with the empty finally block, right? Now this is what it says. It is saying that in the property helper.java file, line number 57, it is saying some empty code. Click on it, right? If you click on the file here, for example, it will open the code for you. Now it says that there is something like empty code, means developer was supposed to write some code here, but he didn't write the code. Why? Means what is the purpose that he initialized this particular block? He initiated first, but he didn't fill the code. He didn't write the exact code he was to do it. Means that this may not cause problem team while running the application. Remember, like everything you initiate here, like utilizing some resource of the computer, right? So this may give you some warnings. This may, lead to an application performance issue. Means application may load slowly, right? Application may not respond properly sometime. Application may throw unexpected errors sometime, something like that. So this may not be an issue while packaging the code, but this will be an issue when the application is running in your server. Sometimes it crashes automatically. You don't understand it, but these things could cause problems in the real, right? That's the reason, team, we should avoid them, or we should ask developer to avoid these things, or you remove finally, or you fill the code appropriately, something he has to do. Now, why did I install the plugin? If I did not install the plugin here, can I understand all this data like this? Is the question. Yes, Karthi? What do you think? If I did not install the plugin, earlier I've shown you the pmd.xml. Were you able to understand this sort of a data from that pmd.xml or so? Why we use plugin? Why you install an application from App Store on your mobile phone? You install Google Maps? Yes. Did you use Google Maps in your phone or not? Why did you install the Google Maps? Why did you install the Google Maps? It was not there in your phone, for example. What happens? So simple understanding, right? If you don't install it, you cannot use it. So technically, the plugin that I'm installing it is helping me visualize the code review results. Jenkins cannot do by default that option for me. After adding the plugin, it is what it is doing it. So it is helping me do this option. That is the reason I installed the plugin. Make sense? Now, what is the reason we install a plugin here, or any questions still? Yes, everybody, are we all clear on what are plugins in Jenkins? Why do we need the plugins in Jenkins, and that are mandatory always? Yes, everybody. Is PMD is a code review tool? You may consider it as a code review rule set. Yes, Veera. Team everyone, I need a confirmation from everybody. We do not write the code right in my project folder. We just had some files. That is not the folder we are using, Upendra. I have shared you the real Java code yesterday, and I'm executing all these things on the real Java code to replicate the real-time scenario here. This is a real Java project URL I have shared with everybody yesterday. And I told you that I'm using this repository in which I'm not using my project, okay? It is the real project. We are using it here. Okay, this is where you see all the real Java code, everything. That is the reason you're able to identify those mistakes and everything. Okay. So everyone, any questions more? Okay, so if you're all clear with this team, let's take a quick 5 minutes break. Read about the plugins again, team. That's very much important concept in Jenkins. I've tried my best to explain that. So please do come back if you have any issues. So I'll see you in 5 minutes time, please. Okay, so team, everyone, I'm back. I hope that everybody is back as well. So can I just get a quick confirmation, team, everyone, all of you? Okay, great. Thank you, team. Thank you all for the quick information. So let's start with the next step, team. As we now understood about the, as we now understood about the code review and the compilation stages executed from the Jenkins. Now let's move on to the next stage, team, which is going to be your unit testing, right? A unit testing team is mostly done by the developers, mostly remember that, but we also can perform as a final one more time. Remember, team, every developer may do their own, code developed testing by them. But in the whole repository team, we actually can club all the developers' code and then do a unit testing on top of the total code from every developer, not an individual developer codes here, right? There are a number of developers may be working. Now, this is the reason, team, we may do it again one more time from the Jenkins, unit testing as a whole, and we recheck if all the code from the all developers with the necessary unit testing is passing or not. So I create a new job again. Under the new job, again, as usual, we just say that source code repository. We give the source code repository URL from where you can actually get the source code, right? Here it is. So just take this one and then again, go into the build step, right? Under the build step, team, you may use something called execute shell again. Execute the same thing, say opt maven bin mbn, and then the simple goal is that team test, right? We're asking maven to perform the unit testing. I'll tell you again little details about it, but let's look into the results here. Now here it is, team. MVN test is a predefined goal given by the maven so that a maven would automatically start testing the code one by one. Now, along with this, team, understand the unit test would also generate some sort of the results, right? Some sort of the results similar to the code review, right? So in order to execute or in order to visualize those results again, we may use certain plugin called JUnit. The JUnit is a default plugin gets installed, team. If you do not find this published JUnit test results report, so again, go back to the manage plugins, search for a plugin called JUnit, and then install that plugin. But this JUnit plugin, team, is default with the Jenkins installation itself. So we're not reinstalling it. It is already available. The code review plugin was not available, so we installed it. Whereas the JUnit test results plugin was a default with the Jenkins installation. Remember, we did yesterday about the install suggested plugins when we launched the first time. So where a part of it will install this plugin. So use this again. You might want to go ahead and then give the repository the path where it will generate all those results, right? So the path will be, team, it's very simple, right? Let me give you the path. It is the default, team. It will be stay safe always, right? It will stay same always as long as you use the JUnit plugin mostly. The plugin will be like this. You may go to the target folder, the target results where we say that the surefire report something. And there will be like multiple XMLs in this scenario. So we just say star.xml. The path, remember that all the results will be under the target. The JUnit will publish, or, in this case, the test would publish or generate this directory with the results of XMLs, the test results actually. So we are taking that results and publishing or visualizing on the Jenkins UI itself again. That is what all we're trying to do. Yes, the files and everything are, these are not files available on the GitHub, okay? These are the output generated by this command, the target, right? The unit test results are generated and then it will be there. These are not available on your GitHub, remember that, okay? So save it. They are the runtime statistics will be generated. I'll show you. So here it is, team. If I run this one now, it will start executing all the unit tests and then start generating the results. You may see the output if you want it. I think it is done, or it is running the test now. You see that it started running certain tests, whatever they are. And then it says that it ran total of 23 tests, and then failures are 0, errors 0, skipped 0 something. But again, the question here is that let's look at the results one more time. Just refresh the page, team. You will see the results. Just refresh it. You see the test results at the bottom. And if you click on it, it will tell you that, okay, total 23 tests run successfully, 0 failures. Now you may click on this for detailed information, what all the tests have been executed like this one. Now it is all the developer given test cases, team. We are not going to understand anything here. So it says test double sort, test sort employee ascending. It depends on the functions, methods that are available in the Java programs or Java files, right? This is about some kind of the employee ascending, descending orders, something is wrong here. But the question here is that, team, where these test cases are present. Now, if I'm executing some test case, team, the test cases should be present somewhere, isn't it? Everybody? Yes, team. We are executing a test case and it is executing some program and then giving me the result. The maven is executing a test case. So where are these test cases given to you? Who gave it to you, basically? You're not the developers, right? We're still able to run it. How? Now, this is where, team, you must understand that in the source code repository itself, right? Whenever you're performing a unit testing, not from the developer endpoint, but from Jenkins point of view, right? If Jenkins using a maven, it is performing unit testing, it is always present under the test folder. Remember, team, if you go to the source code repository, there is a SRC folder given to you always by the developer. Under that, you have two important folders. One is the main. The main folder is the actual source code will be there. The test folder is where you actually see the unit test cases as a scripts or a programs given by the developer again. Remember, these are given by the developer along with the source code itself. Now you see that there are some, something like the programs given. Now in this one, they're just doing it. Say test generic comparator, something. It is doing some testing. It is saying that analyze the my data, analyst, array list my data, something. It is testing some the test suite, test sort double employee, test sort employee descending, test sort employee, something. You see this, team, all these are the test cases that are actually given. Some kind of the dummy data is passed, and that dummy data is passed to get as the test, and they're executing that result as a value is getting or not. So this is the idea, team. Remember that unit test cases are also given to you by the developer. If there is a test folder present in the source code repository, then only you may run the unit testing in the Jenkins using maven again. If this folder is missing, you cannot perform the testing. Why we keep here is that, team, again, remember, when multiple developers are working on the same project, every developer may do the unit testing on their code on their own machine. All right. And then once they do it, means if I want to perform the unit testing on the whole code from n number of developers, how do I do that? Now that is where, team, the developers will be updating their own test cases as well into the repository like this. So as a whole, we can expect to perform this one, and then we see the overall result that overall code is being tested as well one more time from the endpoint, right? So this is the understanding, team, about how the unit testing is performed, how Jenkins using maven can perform the unit testing with the help of the test cases given by the developer always. Remember, these test cases should be uploaded to the source code repository from the developer endpoint only. If they are missing it, this will not work for you. Let me tell you. Okay. So am I clear, everybody? on the unit testing and what they are and how they're doing it. As of now, all the unit test cases are successful for us. So nothing to worry on this scenario. So any questions? If a unit test case is failed when you execute it, right? If you execute it, then revert back to the developer, say them that, hey, these test cases are failing it. Please check if the source code is good or not. The source code repository is the GitHub always. Repository, source code repository is such one repository on the GitHub. The project that you maintain on this one is called as the source code management tool is GitHub. Source code repository is your my project folder. Your own project is called as the source code repository. Shubham, clear? Okay, GitHub is a source code management tool, something. Source code repository is a project under the source code management tool. Okay. So I believe, team, I'm clear on this unit testing as well. So any questions on the unit testing, please let me know. We can talk. Can you run all the task compile code review as a single task? You may do that, Veera. I'll show you that as well. But you need to understand the consequences and understand outputs a little different way. So as a beginner, you do one by one. Once you do these things, we're also going to do all together as a single step with different ways. We will try to understand. But the answer is yes, we can. Okay. As a beginner team, you all have to do these things. Then you can understand the Jenkins in a better way for implementation. Okay. So one last step, team, in our build code process, which is the package now, which is MVN package something. So let's go here and build a new item again. And I see that the package, say freestyle and say okay. Same thing, team, again, we're going to give the repository where we have the source code available. So take this URL and then give this one, simple. Now, once you do this, again, go to the build steps and under the build step, execute shell and use this one. So OPT, maven, bin, right, MVN, right, and then say package. Now, assuming that, team, you see the code review was good, compilation was good, and then see that the unit testing is successful and no issues found. Now, if you are satisfied with those results, now we are generating the final output we wanted, something like a deployable package, right? The MVN package will convert now the source code into the deployable package simply. If the previous steps are failed, if the previous steps are failing and if the previous steps are not having good results, there's no sense to package the code at all. It means we need to rectify those issues first of all, then package so that the final product may not have any issues after delivering it, right? So this is the understanding, team. Again, if I go to the console output here, at the bottom, now you see this. Jenkins is also a web application. That's right. That's right, Shubham. Jenkins is also kind of web application. So here you see that it says the packaging web app and the assembling the web app sample app something. It says processing the var project, building a var, and this is the var that you get it. Now executable is what you got, one single executable file. All the code from your repository now converted into a single executable file. If you want to see that, you can go here to the folder on the backend, right? And you see that the var file is generated, which is like the .exe file in the case of other things, right? You see that this is around 16 MB file now. This I can shift anywhere, right? Like somebody gets download a executable and you install it. Now there is a specific installation process we follow to run this executable as well. So it loads an application for you in the browser again. I'm also going to deploy this application later point, team. I'll show you how to access the application we built it. How does it look like? What is this application about? Everything we will do it. But for now, your understanding must be that we converted a source code given by the developers into a deployable format, simple. Now this file we take and then we install in a server to access that application. Again, it will be a web application that can be loaded in a browser always. So are we all clear now about the build code process, what it is and how we implement using the Jenkins, the various stages in the build code process, we do step by step and execute it. Now, what all you configuring in this Jenkins team is a one-time activity. Now, once I build all these things with my understanding, even if I give this Jenkins console now to a 10th grade student and I ask him to run it, he can run it. Yes. Can they run as well? See that we just say that, go ahead and execute this one. I'll show him once or her once. And if there is an issue, get back to me. Can it be easy now, everybody? You need to understand anything in this one? No, right? Team, everybody, am I clear? I hope you're all able to understand what I'm telling you right now. So a technical persons will build this one, and the new employees, and in a project, I'm saying it, if our freshers are there, we'll ask them to start by executing, later dig down slowly to understand the various things accordingly. So you also have to do this one, team. You do at least once, build them manually one by one, so you understand. So with Jenkins now, we automated to certain extent. Remember, with Jenkins now, we automated to certain extent that where things can be easily executed. So Jenkins do all these stages for us. Now it is also necessary now, team, that why I should run or why I should click on this play button every time I want to run some step. Can it not be further automated so that they run one by one automatically? Yes, team, what do you think? Can we further automate them to execute automatically one after the other? We want in a sequence, right? Now remember, team, this is where now we are talking about, right? Chain it. That's what we're talking here. So we want something. So once it is saved in your folder, Shweta, as long as you keep it, it will be there, right? Until unless if somebody is deleting it, the file will be available on the folder where it is generated. Now, if you want to secure that, you may upload into an external repository like a Google Drive. Now, if you want to save some file in a centralized storage, like a cloud storage like Google Drive, you do it? You do, right? So we can take the WAR file, we upload into a Google Drive like storage in the real time, and we save it for years of time or months of time to be sure that we can get back to that version again if you want, right? I hope that makes sense for you. It is your responsibility now to take the WAR file, put it in one repository where it can be saved for the amount of time you want to save it and delete whenever you want it. So otherwise, it will be there on the server again, as long as you keep it. Now, are these tasks are dependent on one to another? They're not any dependent tasks. They can be run in parallel as well, Vera. They are not any dependent tasks. But remember that a compilation should be done first of all, and the code review. The package is the dependent step. If the compilation is not done successfully, we cannot package it, right? Remember, the compilation is not done, then packages. So package is a dependent on the compilation, but other steps are not dependent. In unit testing step, we have specified MVN test in build shell. Is it because the test cases folder name is test under the source folder? It's nothing related to that, Upendra. Nothing related to that. The goal is a test. The folder name and the goal name is not related actually. Okay. The folder name is also standard and this is also standard, but again, they are not related. Okay. They don't need. Okay. So with that understanding, team, now let's start constructing the pipeline. Okay. Now, what is the definition of pipeline I told? You can say that, Ganesh. It's part of the maven lifecycle. Test is an argument for the maven executable. Okay. That's right. It is an argument given by the maven. So in this scenario, team, remember, The pipeline is what now we want to do it. Now we have individual steps running on their own team, but we want to execute them in a sequence, in an order. I want to do that. So I want to be sure that the compilation is successful first of all. Then only I'll perform the next stages. Otherwise, I'll stop there itself. So this is kind of a bit dependency we try to build. Now, again, remember, if you run these stages now one after the other, then that can be called as pipeline. So the understanding is that once the compile is complete, I want to run the code review. I want to run the unit test as well in parallel because they are not dependent. Once the compile is complete, then only you run the further steps. That is maybe a dependency you call it. So the code review, I want to run it. Or if I want to build the dependency, like once the code review is complete, then only I'll run the unit test. Yes, we may do that. Once all these stages are completed successfully, then we want to execute the package. So technically, team, this is what you do it now. As I said, once the compile is complete, I want to run the code review for a scenario. Now, what configuration I do is that I go to the code review. Remember, team, I'm trying to build a dependency that the code review can execute once the compile is complete. So I'll go to the code review configuration, right? Configure or reconfigure the code review here. Now, there is something called build trigger, means when this job should be triggered, automated, not a manual trigger, manual execution, automated trigger, automated execution. Now, there are multiple options are given. We can say trigger builds remotely, build periodically, like on a schedule basis. Every 2 hours you schedule, so it runs automatically. You have multiple options like using a GitHub hooks and poll SCMs accordingly. But in our case, team, we don't want all these things. There is one option called build after other projects are built. Now, what is this after other project? Other job that we wanted. So which means say that projects to watch. Now, as I said, team, the code review should be executed after compile is completed. So I'll say that you give the compile, you linking them. That's what we're trying to do. We are linking the compile or the code review to the compile now, right? What this is going to do, Jenkins says, now you see that the compile job, so the code review job is waiting to execute compile. Whenever this is successful, if the trigger builds stable or successful, we say that. Now you can say always trigger, but irrespective of the compile job, execution is failed or is successful or something. Now you run it. Means even the trigger compile job is failed, you run it. This is what you choose it. Now, no, I want the code review should be executed only if the compile job is successful. Then choose the first option, right? You have various options, team. You build according to the requirement. Now, once I do this build trigger configuration, team, remember a code review periodically, again, checking the status of the, what do you call the compile job status, right? If there is a latest execution happened on the compile job, then it starts triggering based on that. If it is successful, it will trigger it. Now there is a dependency we build it. Now, whenever the compile completed, code review will trigger based on the configuration we made it. Along with this, team, now I want to do the unit testing to be executed when the code review is completed. So let's go to the unit testing and then go to the configuration option again. Use the same option again, team. No need to worry. So build triggers, build after the resource built, and then give the name called code review, right? Means that, team, after the code review is completed, we want to execute it. No, I want to run this job as well. As soon as the compile is completed, you may configure compile. Now, what happens in this case? After the compile is completed, the code review and the unit testing will trigger in parallel, right? Both of them will trigger in parallel after the compile is completed. Now, if you do not want that to happen, if you want to be in a sequence only, then you give the code review. Means this job will do only after the code review is completed. That's what will happen. So apply, save. Now the same thing again, we want to do the package. A package should be done after the unit testing is completed mostly. in our sequence. So go to the build trigger, choose build after the products are built, and say that unit test something. Now, when you do the unit testing, which means that I'm asking the package to watch unit test whenever something is complete. Remember, the package should be done after unit testing in a sequence now, and say that save it. Now, once I save a team, now this is the dependency you built it already. Remember, this is the dependency now. Looking at the sequence team, you can see that which job is dependent on which job, isn't it, team, everybody? It is easy, right? Looking at the screen now, you can see that easily. But in the real time, say that there are 100 jobs in my console. Now, you're having only 4 jobs right now we created. But in the real time, say that you have built 100 jobs doing a various activities. Now, can you identify the sequence? What do you think, team? Can you identify the sequence if you have over 100 jobs in the screen? Now, again, it becomes a difficult thing, right? So Jenkins again can help us in visualizing the build dependencies, the pipeline dependencies for us. Now, if I want to do that again, what do I do? Can Jenkins do by default this dependency? That's a separate task, you call it, Ganesh. That's a separate thing, right? That's pipeline as a code. We're not talking about pipeline as a code right now. So here it is, team. We are talking about something called as the plugin again. The plugins will help. The idea is that whenever Jenkins cannot do something and you want Jenkins to do something, think about a plugin, extend the Jenkins functionality. Yes. Thank you, Veera. You're right. The plugins again would help me. There are certain plugins that will help me visualize these dependencies. Again, I need to go to the manage Jenkins, go to the manage plugins, and go to the available plugins, and then say that there is a plugin called as the build pipeline plugin. Now there is some warning, you can avoid it. Say build pipeline plugin, you take it, install without restart. Now, what is this plugin do, team? It will help us in just visualizing the sequence of the jobs that the pipeline will execute, right? So once you install the necessary plugin, go back to the screen, dashboard. Now you need to configure this plugin to do this one. How do I do that, team? You can generate a separate visualization. Now this is a normal visualization, team. You see all above, there is a plus symbol, right? Remember, team, just above the jobs, there is all jobs in your screen. And below that, you have a plus symbol. Click on this plus symbol here. Now you see that the view, I call this as a CI pipeline something. Now, whatever you want to call it, you call it accordingly, right? I call this as a CI pipeline. Now I see something called as the build, creating a new view, something, right? So here it is, build pipeline view. If you click on this plus, it will allow you to create a new view. So we are selecting the build pipeline view and say create it. Now, once you create, it will ask you a few configuration again. Now, in which team we are just interested in one step, which is called the pipeline flow, right? Now, where you see something called as the select an initial job in your pipeline flow. What is our initial job? What is the first job in our sequence team in this scenario? Everybody? What is the first job? Everyone. Compile, right? Yes. It is the compile, not code review. Ashwin, the first job is always that the compile in our scenario. So we select the compile here from the drop down and apply and save it. That's all you do, right? Now you get a nice visualization here, something. Now you may execute it by clicking on the run option here. It will start running with color codings, everything we do, right? So you see that yellow color is the running, right? And the blue color is yet to run. Green is a successful job. And if it is a red color, assume it is a failure job. Now you see this team, it is executing in a sequential automatically. I just executed the compile team or the pipeline now. You see that they are being executed one after the other automatically. Okay. Now this is called pipeline building. Remember again, a pipeline is something that executes the various stages, right, in the build code in a sequential order, or sometimes some steps can be in parallel as well. But you have a start point, you have an end point. Between that, there can be multiple steps, multiple stages. And this approach, if you do these things, we call that as the pipeline. Now, I hope that everybody is clear on what is called pipeline and how do you understand the pipeline thing here. So any questions on the pipeline team, everyone? Are we all clear now with what is called a pipeline and how do you build a CI pipeline? Remember team, the continuous integration pipeline, the outcome of your continuous integration pipeline is something we call it as the deployable code always. Remember, the outcome of a CI pipeline is always that it is the deployable source code. If you run multiple times, duplicates file will create on the target folder. The way you configure Vera, that's right. In this case, in my case, in our case, basically we are overwriting the existing files, but you configure the logic such a way that it will generate a new file every time. It will start putting the file based on the timestamps, everything. That's right. Okay. Can we test some failure, maybe code review or compile test now? You want to fail something, Ramkant? Let's give something bad, right? I mean, you want to fail the job, isn't it, Ramakant? Is that what you want? You want to fail the job, is it? So give something wrong here. In the goal, I just give something. So if I give something wrong while building it, then it will do it. You just have to execute the same button again and again. Just rerun, right? If I go to the CI pipeline, it is now completing, right, Shweta? Now you just have to click on the run button again. Whenever you want to execute again, click on the same run button. It is not a rerun, it is just a run button. You click on again and again and again. So once it moves on, you may click on rerun or run again. It will put in the queue and it will rerun again. Okay, that's how you understand, Shweta and everybody. So why don't we give all the commands in the script path and run it all alone once, same job? Ganesh, I said this is the beginner level, right? Now what you're seeing is an advanced level. So if I don't teach you this one, it will be hard for you to understand that. Okay, that's the reason. And you see that it will fail here, right? There you go. It won't move to the next stage. That is what we configured, right? If a stage is failed, like you see on my screen now, right? It will stop there itself. It will not move and execute the next one. If only success, move to next. That is what we're doing it. Okay, Veera, everybody, you can check the console output. Now that is what I'm showing you here, or you may click on the job and then you can retry later. But see that if I go to the build, right, and console output, it is a failure here, but you see that. Now the reason for failure, you might see here something. This is a command ran. It says is a build failure. It says something called unknown lifecycle phase. You must specify a valid lifecycle. Okay. You see some errors in the log, straightforward. Understand the error if you can. If it is your choice, if you can fix it, you fix it. If it is a code issue, then send it to the developer. Okay. This is how you do that. Everything, whether it is a failure, successful, warning, you always find in the error log, the logs generated by the Jenkins itself here, right? So are we clear now, team, everyone? Any questions on the CI pipeline configuration? We built it. This is very much important and easy as well, team. You all just have to follow and then do it at least once. You build your confidence automatically. Okay. Right. So the next one key that we want to do, one last thing here. Now, along with this team, remember, we can further automate as well. Now, in this scenario team, remember that we are executing the run option here every time, right? Every time you are clicking here, this is one. Now, why should I click even this button? Now, you know that if I click this, it will all go from start to last. But why should I even click this option here? Why cannot I further automate this one? Now, which I mean to say this team, for example, the first stage in our process is that the compile, right? Now, this compile job, if I trigger it, it will start executing the rest in a sequence. That is what we're doing it. Now, can we execute compile as well automatically, right? Can we execute automatically? We should be able to do that. Now, there are multiple scenarios. For example, there is a scenario I want to talk. Say that I want to execute whenever a developer is pushing a source code on the main branch. Let's trigger this one. Understand the scenario team here that whenever there is a new change happening on the source code, let the GitHub trigger the compile job. Can the GitHub trigger the compile job? What do you think, team? Can the source code repository trigger your compile job on the Jenkins? The answer is yes, team, it can. We just need to configure the things. That's right, it's a webhook, correct? Can the GitHub trigger the compile job? Yes, we can do that. And that's the next level of automation again. We are trying to do that, right? And it is necessary, team, we may implement as well sometime, okay? So let me show you, team, how do we configure, right? How do we ask GitHub to trigger the compile, right? Two things, team, from the Jenkins perspective. Now I want to trigger this compile job when there is a change on the GitHub, something like I go to the build trigger. Now you see only one option here called GitHub hook trigger, right? Now this option, team, I need to select on the compile. But again, this is not done yet, team. From the Jenkins side, this is okay. But how does my GitHub knows to trigger this job on this one? Since we selected, say it is going to trigger it. But how does GitHub knows about my Jenkins address? Remember, team, if you want to reach, if you want to dial to me, team, you need to know my mobile number, isn't it? Yes or no? That's what happens, right? If you want to call me, you should know my mobile number. Then only you can call me. Means there is some address that I have it. If you want to come to my home, you need to know my home address. Similarly, team, Jenkins is a different thing, like me, and GitHub is like you. And if you want to reach to me, you should know my address, right? Whether it's mobile number, whether it's my physical address, whatever it is. Similarly, team, we must tell the GitHub Jenkins address. Now, how do I configure that address to the GitHub? We will do these steps. Now, I'm giving you a document, team, right? I'll do that settings. I'm giving you a document here in the link that clearly tells about how do we configure things. I just documented for your reference so that you can follow it later as well. It's a very simple thing, right? Now, if you want to tell the GitHub to trigger a job on the Jenkins, we need to go to the settings tab on your GitHub project, first of all. So this is my project. Go to the settings tab that you see. Remember, team, you need to fork this repository and then use from your account, okay? If you use from my account, you may not see the settings button. So ensure that you fork this repository to your account, then configure your project URLs, your account URLs always. So I'm doing from my account, so I'm just going to this particular settings button. Right now, if I go to the settings button as per this one, select the webhook option on the left menu. right? If I go here on the left, the webhook option, you see that, click on the webhook. Now on this one, you see an option called add webhook. If I click on it, say it is asking my password confirmation. Now I'm just entering it. Now you log in. Remember team here, again, going back to the webhook page, add webhook here. Now here, the payload URL. Now what is this payload URL? It's nothing but team, it's your Jenkins URL. Add webhook for payload URL, use the Jenkins server instance IP and the port number. Now you're telling the GitHub the Jenkins address like this. This is the URL which you used in the browser. Use the same thing here under the payload. But this is not done, team. Remember, along with that, you also need to add something called GitHub webhook as a context at the end of it. So take this one and configure like this. This is very much important, team. Along with your Jenkins IP and the port number, add this context, which is very much important. Now, once you've done the content type, which you need to change to application JSON, right? Now, this is what we did. Now select application JSON from the encoding type or the content type, you call it. Sorry, here. The content type here, you see that application JSON, use this one. Now, once you do this one, team, you may choose the event. Which events would you like to trigger this webhook? Just the push event means whenever somebody pushing, committing a code on the main branch, we are implementing this. Or you may send everything, what does matter? Or you want to be selecting an individual options like when somebody push, when somebody do a pull request, when somebody fork my repository, right? Something you do it. There are n number of options given here. The pull request, we did it. Push, we did it, right? We did a pull request, review comments are done, then you did. Depends on your requirement, team. You may choose all these options, which is suitable for your project. But in this case, team, I'm just seeing the push event for now. Just ensure that you select the push event and ensure the webhook become active here. Add webhook. Now, once you add the webhook, team, from now onwards, remember, if I make a commit on my repository, means if I push some code to this one, right, this job will trigger. Let's say that we configure a GitHub hook, means when the GitHub coming to here, it will check all the jobs with this option selected. So save this one, right? And so far, team, whenever we run, I'll show you console output. It will show that it started by a user called admin. Remember, the user it is started so far is admin because I was clicking on build now option so far, right? But the scenario here is that the next build, now here the compile, the build status 7 we want. Build 6 was triggered by the admin. Now the build 7, how does it happen now? Say that I'm going to push some code, or you may commit something here directly. For example, I'm editing this one, I'm putting back some change, and I commit something. Now, as soon as I commit, team, it's like a push. Remember, you commit directly on the remote, or you push from the local to the remote, like you making a new change and updating the repo. Once the repo is updated here, you should see that the triggering happening. Now you see the team 7th is already triggered, or if I go to the compile pipeline, you see it is triggered already. We didn't do anything, team. Remember, it is automatically triggered. If I want to see that really it is triggered by the GitHub, go to the compile, go to the console output. Who triggered this one? You see this team on the screen right now. It is started by GitHub push by lead DevOps. That's my account name. And this is what it is done, right? So can I say this now? From now onwards, this pipeline will automatically trigger whenever there is a push happens on my repository. Isn't it going to happen, team, now? Yes, everybody? Yes, everybody. Now, this is called a complete pipeline build. You may do this team according to your project requirement. I don't say this will be there as it is. We do it. Steps will remain same thing, but the configurations will be as per your project requirement, right? But the overall process understanding is that we have a start point, we have an endpoint. The final outcome of the continuous integration pipeline will be the deployable source code always. Okay. Now we have completed only the CI pipeline, half of the pipeline, Raju. We still have to do the CD pipeline, continuous delivery pipeline, that we will be doing it later point. This is the first part that everybody should know it. Okay. On the GitHub, you need to go to your project settings, Ganesh. You have your project, right? I mean, if you use my account, you may not be able to see that. You have to fork this project into your account first of all, and you must see your account name and the repository, right? So that you can see the settings button. So can you all see the settings button if you forked it maybe? If you see the settings button, click on the settings. On the left side, you see the webhook option there. Okay, Ganesh and everybody. Everyone, I'm asking again to fork this project, which is the sample Java app project. Once you fork in your account, then you see the settings tab. If you use my URL, you cannot see the settings tab. Remember that. Okay. So are we all clear now about the way we build a continuous integration pipeline with Jenkins? In case user is logged out state, what will be the scenario? You cannot see either. You cannot fork it also, right, Vishal? If the user is logged out, you cannot fork it. You cannot see the settings tab, either you logged out or you're not using your own account. Okay. If you own the project, right? If you own the project, then only you can see it. I mean, means if you log out of the Jenkins, if there is a change, it will run in the background. Means I logged out, doesn't matter for Jenkins, right? If I push it here, it will still start the pipeline. Doesn't matter for it. Okay. So you logged in, you logged out, it doesn't matter. It's just the user, right? But Jenkins will trigger. I committed here, I logged out. Does it matter for me? No. It will trigger the pipeline again. It might have triggered already as well. If I go on see this, the pipeline may be running. See here, it is running. Does it matter if I log in out of the Jenkins? No. It will run automated whenever after config. As long as the Jenkins is running, everything will run automatically for us. Okay. As long as the Jenkins server is up and running, once you configure, you go away, the pipelines will keep running in the background automatically. Okay. This is called automation team. This is called the final automation. You achieved it. Okay. So this is about the pipeline built on the Jenkins and how do you understand the pipeline setup. And I want all of you to implement this without at least once so you get your clarity. But tomorrow team, we're going to discuss on the advanced topics like the Jenkins security configuration, as well as the master agent configuration, master slave configuration in Jenkins, what they are and why we use them. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the Jenkins administration tasks, which is very much important again for a DevOps engineer. So let's talk about them, right? And then we'll continue further on it. So if any questions on today's session, team, let me know. Otherwise, we're done for today. I hope you all have enjoyed the session. And I appreciate everybody, team, for all sharing your feedback on the session. I really like it. So please, everybody, I request to share your honest feedback on the session. If there is something that you want me to change from my side, please feel free to say so. Okay. Thank you, team. I'm done from my side. If you have anything, we'll talk. Otherwise, happy Ugadi again. Enjoy your festival day today. Thank you. We do have some further steps as well, Raju, for verify install, deploy something additional steps as well there. Not only the steps we discussed, there are 3 to 4 steps more that maven can use it, but not really we use it all the time. What we discussed is what we use mostly, and the rest of the steps are optional. If your project needs them, use it, otherwise not necessary. Okay. See you all. Have a great day. Okay. Take care. I mean, are you installing on the Windows, Shweta? Shweta. All right. Can you see if you can share your screen? Can you share your screen? You can also unmute yourself and speak, please, Shweta. Great, Ganesh. Shweta, are you able to speak?
Hello.
What is the issue? Yeah.
Yeah, hi Naresh.
Yeah, hi.
Well, actually, I am totally new to this, and I've tried 2-3 times to install, but I cannot do it. So I need some help in installing.
I understand, Shweta. So, I mean, you are trying to do setup on your personal laptop. Is it your office laptop something or a personal laptop, first of all?
It's my personal laptop.
Okay, and it's Windows, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the problem that you're facing exactly?
Okay. This is what it is telling when I'm trying to install. I don't know where I'm getting wrong.
Why you're starting a Tomcat? Because see, the instruction that you're using is something similar to the Linux format. Okay, so /opt/tomcat/bin startup.sh. It is the directory structure of the Linux, not the Windows. Windows has the different directory structure, right? Do you see a /opt? No. You cannot use the Linux path in the Windows. That is the main as I see it here. But again, why are you using the Tomcat here actually? I mean, what have you done exactly? Can you brief it? So how did you install the Java? How did you install the maven? And you're trying to install the Jenkins, if I'm not wrong here in the Tomcat. Is it right?
No, I am not trying to do anything, but I just tried to install this Java, but I just follow the steps which I got. Wait, let me.
Yeah, show me the steps that you followed at least so I can understand what you have done.
What I did is I just click this one. I just copied the link and I just pasted. That's what.
Shweta, I just see your partial screen. Are you sharing something else?
No.
Okay, so maybe can you tell me how did you download the Java? You go to the browser and you say download Java, and then you download the Java there. You have the .exe file of the Java on your system. How did you install the Java? First thing. How did you install? You didn't install Java.
I was just going through this online how to install.
No, that's what I'm saying. Can you share
Yeah.
me that link which you are following
Yeah.
at? So let me see that. Okay, Ganesh, you ping me some link. That's
Simply learn. Yeah. When I was unable to do, then my brother said that you should go for the step watch this video, so I was just trying to watch this.
Which one?
This video.
No, I'm not seeing your screen, Shweta. I'm just seeing the PowerShell screen. I'm not seeing anything else what you're showing to me. You're seeing
Okay,
this
okay.
one. That's what the problem is.
Can you see it now?
It's loading. Just give me a second. Yeah, now I can see that. Now show me what you want to show.
Okay. I just watched this, but I didn't follow the steps from here because as the class was going to start, so I just watched this video for 1 to 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
6 steps to install Jenkins on Windows. The problem, that's what I'm seeing, right? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not sure why you're trying to set up on your personal laptop for now. So you can do that, but let's say that before you do that, if you follow my instruction to set up on the EC2, were you able to create a EC2 instance?
Yes, I did.
No, the understanding is that, Shweta, so if you do a couple of things which I said it, then later you'll understand what's happening exactly with installations at maven. So if you want the Jenkins installation on the Windows, I'll guide you something. So technically, I mean, do you have the link which I shared with you, the GitHub Labs link? The labs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go to the Jenkins folder on the labs. Labs, click on the labs. Maximize the
Actually,
browser.
just tell me what I can do because I don't know how to install it. So please guide me that
No, that's
how
what I'm
can I
saying.
install?
That's what I'm saying it. So why don't you do on the EC2 as I guided? I have given you the instruction to do that. No, I'm not sure why you decided to do on your personal laptop, but what you see in the real time will be like what I'm doing it, right? So if you follow that, that will be good enough for you. But if you want to set up something on your personal laptop, because the instructions will be varied, and then everything will become a different process because operating system to operating systems, the instructions will be varied accordingly, right? So that's the reason we are following one route. If everybody follows a different route, then it will be difficult for me to guide everybody as well, right? So if you follow what I'm saying, first of all, and understand the technology, first of all, right? What it is, how to work with it. And installation is a one-time task. Let me tell you that installations are always one-time tasks that you can implement either on the Windows or the Linux or the Mac machine, doesn't matter for me. So I have the instructions I can share with you. That's what I'm saying it. I have shared you one instruction so that everybody follows what we do in the real time. Now, in the labs repository, there is a guide that I have it on how to install Jenkins on Windows machine to follow step by step as well. But I think you still not going back to the labs page. I want you to go to the Jenkins page. No, then still it is loading your page. I don't know, very slow. Okay, can you stop share? I'll show you the guide.
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So here, if I go to the GitHub, Learn DevOps Labs, go to the Jenkins here, right? And if you go to the what is this one, docs. So here, the Jenkins Essentials, if you do this one, you need to download this, click on the download button. It will download that to the local. Now open this one. Now here, if you go step by step, right, it gives you the guide on how to install step by step. It gives you the all topics, of course. Here it is, right? So here it is, right? Install Jenkins on Windows and a CentOS process, it says. So you need to download the Jenkins accordingly, right? And then say that Jenkins setup something. It talks about this step by step. So if you can follow this one, it will be easy for you to do that like this, one step. It is a CentOS installation something. Or even if you want to follow this something different, I think the other guide will also guide you something here. even download this document. So this one, it also going to give you the Jenkins installation, download Jenkins. I know most of the people will do on the Windows, right? So here it is, the download, the one, start using, right? Says that something or like this, access Jenkins. There are different options that you do it, a Tomcat setup. So you follow the guides, but before you do all these different type of installations, follow one I said, right? Which is the Linux based installation. Once you install, configure, work with Jenkins is more important than setting up Jenkins because it's one-time task. You can get the instructions from anywhere. I will give you the different links on how to set up Jenkins on Windows, how to set up Jenkins on Linux. You followed it. Even if you have a Mac machine, I'll share the instructions. The one which I said, follow first of all, I request to do that. Then later you may try with the different installations than what we're doing in the course. Okay. But otherwise, I have the guides. You may follow these guides as well, parallelly to set up the Windows on your machine as well. Okay. Make sense? Yeah.
Yes, yes. But could you please just tell me that I just want to use that EC2 one. Just a second.
You want to share?
Yes.
I'll stop the share. Please do share. Okay. Go to the AWS. What you want to know?
Yes. Here I just want to know that we do. I just tried to do one time the EC2, but I don't know how to do that ambient one.
You need to log into this instance, right? Click on the instances running. Go to the instances running on the top. Or left side instances link. Instances link. Yeah, click on that. Now you have my instance job, XYZ instance is running, right? You already created and they are running actually. You need to log
Yes.
in to this server, right? Click on this one. You downloaded the PEM file, everything. You created a security group, PEM file, everything as per the second day session. Did you?
Yes.
You did, right? And on that
Yes.
session, we also said about how to log into the server. Did you miss that? Maybe, not sure. So
Actually, now you know what, Naresh, I am not getting the recordings from the IntelliPath. When I am doing the login, then I am getting the self-paced learning one, not that. See here, I'm only getting this. I'm not getting the recording sessions and all.
oh, is it? Now you should get back to
Yeah,
them, right?
yeah. I just
Just did you raise a ticket with contact support team?
yeah, yes, I did today. So that is also one more problem that I'm not able to do that
That's the problem, right? You should have
solutions.
raised this
Yeah,
ticket last week itself. Okay. But did
yeah,
you raise the ticket now? I'll also raise with the team today to address that
yeah. I
quickly.
did. I did raise a ticket today
Okay.
at 9:25 or 28 something.
Okay. So let me ping the team. They will get back to you immediately and then they will try
Yes,
to help
please,
you.
because if I had the recording, then it would be. I guess I should be able to install that.
Definitely,
Mm.
definitely.
Yeah,
So
because it is taking too much time, and I'm like too way back
no, that's okay.
from.
Don't worry. Every tool you
Yeah,
can practice independently. There are no dependencies for it. So don't worry that you're getting behind the scenes. No, nothing like that. Just you can practice one by one. Okay. So anyway, let me ping the team. They will get back to you as soon as possible. Do you have the ticket number with you? Is there any ticket number they gave you?
yes,
Can you ping
yes.
in the chat? Can you ping in the chat? Shweta, there are some guides also on the,
Do you want me to give you the ticket ID?
yeah, whatever the ticket ID, whatever you call it.
Okay.
Shweta, since you see already the instance is running on your screen, right? That's what you see on the AWS console page, right? Now,
Yes.
you have the Google Drive link, which I shared with you.
Yes, I do have that.
Okay, so if I go to the Google Drive, right, let me give it to you. You follow one guide, which I'm giving you. You don't need the support team, but let's say that you try it on your own. And I also ask the support team to contact you immediately, right? If I go to this is the folder, this is where. So if I go to the Linux, right, now you have the lab set up on the VM Cloud PDF. This is what you did already in your screen, right? You already have the VM running. Now, once the VM is running, there is a setup that I'm giving you a specific guide, which is called Connect to EC2 with Mobile External. So if you open this guide, it will tell you how to connect to that EC2 step by step, right? For Windows users, steps to log into the EC2 using Mobile External SSH client. You need to download this tool called Mobile External, install on your server, install on your Windows machine. Will give you screenshots. Then you launch, then you start connecting to the server. Follow this guide. Meanwhile, while time the team is contacting, if you're able to do it by your own, that's great. Like this is what the screen you had it earlier, where you have your server. You get the public IP. Before that, before the screen, you do all these steps one by one to without fail. Follow this guide, which is on the Google Drive. You're able to see the guide?
Yes.
You want me to ping the link? You're able to say this is follow this guide, especially which is connected to EC2 with Mobile External. Okay. You see the guide, right?
Yes, I can see that.
So follow this guide. Meanwhile, I'll also ask the team to contact you. If you have still issues, then just let them know. Okay.
Yes.
And then I hope you should be able to do this by tomorrow.
Yeah, I will try my best to do.
Great. Thank you, Shweta.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you, team. Thank you all. Have a great day ahead. Take care. Shivam, I saw you also had some issue. Are you still there, sir? Shubham, are you there? I think Shubham left. Okay, so I think he's not there. Let's see this one.